Hey guys, it's Crazy Comic Lady here, and I thought I'd do a draw my art journey as I didn't really want to do a draw my life because that's kind of most of my life is very, very depressing. So this is kind of like an abbreviated version of a draw my life. So when I was a kid, I kind of spent most of my life in front of the TV. TV was my parent. And I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 1988, so I am very old. And I love Sonic the Hedgehog and Animals of Farthing Wood. That was like a really quite a new cartoon at the time, and I adored it. And Bucky O'Hare, which was a sci-fi animal adventure, and I just loved the 90s had like the best cartoons. It was brilliant. And of course I loved Ariel the Little Mermaid and all the Disneys and all the videotapes that I still own because I kind of can't get rid of things. But yeah, anyway, then when I was 7, I couldn't walk properly anymore. Suddenly my feet stopped working properly, and I'd like collapse and I couldn't walk on them or run on them or move around. And yeah, eventually it was diagnosed that my ankles had fused together like abnormally. And anyway, I got a lot of teasing and bullying when I was a child, so I ended up kind of, I guess, drawing a lot of cartoon like comic things. I called them picture stories because I couldn't really spell very well. I was very slow at learning to spell, and I was eventually diagnosed with dyslexia. But yeah, so I used to draw like these little picture stories which featured like all the cartoon characters from the shows I used to watch, and I used to draw a lot of those and stuff. And when I went to secondary school in '99, I started like massively doodling like all over my school books. Like I got in trouble for it, but it was more fun than actually doing the work. And then the internet became a thing. That was all brand new, and it was like, what is this internet? And I created my email, my very first email back then. Oh yeah, and you had dial-up, which was really expensive. Anyway, my first email was Sarah Stevens, which is the name of my OC. And then we hit the 2000s, and that was the era of Pokemon and Game Boy Color. And I think that was one of the better years of my childhood because everyone was battling each other. You had to get out your little link cable and you plugged it into someone else's Game Boy Color, and it's just like there was less bullying back in that year for some reason. But unfortunately that didn't last, and Pokemon died out, and then I became this really, really fat, miserable, bullied kid, and I pretty much hung out in the art room at school. That was pretty much where I stayed. And if the art room was locked for some reason or wasn't open, I'd just like sit outside on the floor and draw. I was really sad and pathetic. But yeah, my art back then was really bad. I don't know how I got through my GCSEs because I looked at my old sketchbooks and they're really terrible. Like standards these days are a lot higher compared to back then. And then we hit 2003 and Yu-Gi-Oh was on. I think it was on the second season when I got into it, and I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. Because most of it was about friendship, and of course I had no friends. And so I ended up just like, I fell in love with Seto Kaiba, and I would come home from school all miserable, and then I'd just sit and I'd watch old Yu-Gi-Oh episodes over and over and over again that I'd recorded off TV. And I kind of made that my email address into an actual character that kind of fit into the Yu-Gi-Oh universe then. But anyway, then we were off to college in 2004, and things got a lot better when I went to college, just life-wise, but art-wise things kind of went downhill for me. My course, I did fine art, and it was terrible, and I really struggled with it. It was just so uninspiring and just forced to try and do stuff, and it wasn't creative, and I hated it. And yeah, then at the end of 2004, my appendix tried to leave my body in a very horrific way. That hurt, and I ended up having to drop out for a year, but then I went back and I finished my art course and my other courses I was doing, and I pretty much almost failed. Even though my art teacher said I was online for a B, I got an E, which was almost a fail. But luckily it didn't matter because at that point I'd already been guaranteed a spot at Newport University. It was like an animation course I went and did about where you had to animate bouncing balls and jumping flour sacks, and it was kind of silly. And yeah, in my case, I animated a running wolf because that was a lot more interesting. And yeah, so it didn't matter that I nearly failed because my art was, they liked parts of my art which got me into the course, but I kind of didn't stick out the course because unfortunately after I'd been there a few months, another relative had died, and from the end of 2004 through to the end of 2007 I lost 3 family members. My mother had cancer and my appendix had tried to explode, so it had been a really bad, like, 2.5 or 3 years. But I bounced back and I came back home and I got a job. I had a couple of jobs, but then I ended up at this exam board. That was a good job that I had for about 3 years. And that was when it was quite a boring job. So that's when I had the idea of, let's create comics. And that's how I got my nickname Crazy Comic Lady, because it used to be, I used to upload them on Facebook and I tagged people I met at anime expos. Like, I'd meet them and then I'd just add them into my stories. And I made like original characters, especially like the killer onion ring. But unfortunately then my health took a turn for the worst in 2010, I think, and I kind of lost my job at that point. And my friends kind of didn't bother to stick around. They kind of got on with their own lives. And no one could diagnose what on earth was wrong with me. So it became really depressing, and hospitals treat you really badly because if they can't diagnose you, they start thinking you're making it up. And it became really difficult. I was in so much pain the whole time that I kind of threw myself into this OC, Sarah Stevens. She became my world. All the crap that I'd experienced, she became my outlet for all of the awful things. I just threw myself into her life, and that one character who literally was just my email, who then existed in a Yu-Gi-Oh universe, became just a gigantic family tree of 10 generations of characters, and it became pretty in depth and pretty crazy, and that whole world ended up being like 200 years worth of story. Anyway, then I kind of got into art a bit more because I'd always seen like lecture set markers at anime expos, like pro markers and stuff, and I would always wondered like what they were like and everything, but they were so expensive at the time. I was like, I'm not going to waste the money to buy these when I've got a life. I don't really care about my art. It was just that was just an extra thing back then. So I ended up like buying markers, and then I became obsessed with them. It's like, I must collect them all. So I ended up with like so many lecture set markers. And then I started researching other markers, and I came across Bailey Creations marker videos. She was Z Kitty Z back then, and she had Copic markers, and that kind of got me into like Copic markers. And she made speed paint videos, and I was like, that is really cool. I could do that too. So I started my channel, and it's the 3-year anniversary. I think I've uploaded my first video on the 2nd of April 2012. So yeah, it's been a 3-year journey on YouTube, and it's kind of been like my rock. I've met some really amazing people, and I don't know, everyone's been just really great to me. And I did eventually get a diagnosis as to what was wrong with me, but unfortunately it's not something that's curable, which is a bit slightly depressing. But anyway, I hope you liked my little art journey video. And yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for sticking with me these last 3 years, and hopefully I'll be around for a few years more. Yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Bye!